Hello and welcome to the JW Thoughts channel. We have an action-packed episode for you this time. We have how the New World Translation has completely doctored, cooked, butchered their Bible. We have an example of just an outrageous, ridiculous Bible story. And we also have some contradictions that are so glaring, it borders on hilarious. Many of you might be wondering, hey, I came here to watch ZZ, not you, Wally. Well, I don't have ZZ here, but I do have a pet. Winston, come here. Up, up, up. Sit pretty. Sit pretty. Well, you did sit pretty. Yes, and apparently he likes sitting on his ottoman, so we're going to get our wicked stunt done first. I always save it to the end, but let's do it now. So, if Winston jumps up on this comfy plush ottoman with a delicious blanket on it, then you have to like and subscribe, because why would a dog not jump up on... I mean, what are the odds, really, that a dog would jump up on a comfy plush ottoman? Winston, up, up, up. Oh, wow, he jumped on the ottoman, everybody. Woo! The crowd goes wild. Everyone say hi to Winston. This is Winston Smith. I think you guys have seen him before. I can try and get out of frame. Maybe he'll come into frame. But he is a Doberman and a German Shepherd, and he's a pretty cool dog. Anyway, Winston's here, ZZ's in the other room, only one pet at a time. That's the rules. I make them. It's my channel. Finger guns, let's do this! Alright, so, first off, let's just handle why the New World Translation just completely reads their own theology when they're translating the Bible. I know I did a video on that before, but I can't believe I forgot about this example, and it is so incredibly clear, because what they're essentially trying to do is cover up a pretty obvious, clear contradiction that exists in the Bible. So, we are talking about the same account, but written in two different books. So, the first time we come across this is in 2 Samuel, and the next time we come across this is in 1 Chronicles. So, I will start with the 2 Samuel reading in the New World Translation. It says, "And again the anger of Jehovah came to be hot against Israel, when one incited David against them, saying, 'Go take count of Israel and Judah.'" Okay? Now when it says when one, there is a footnote there, just to be honest with the New World Translation. And they said it's or, quote unquote, he. So they're basically saying you could read this as, "And again the anger of Jehovah came to be hot against Israel, and he incited David against them, saying, 'Go take account of Israel and Judah.'" So when they say "and one," what they do is they reference the parallel account that happens in 1 Chronicles 21. Now that verse reads, "And Satan proceeded to stand up against Israel, and to incite David to number Israel." Now this is the same account. All the details are, well, not all the details are the same, but the premise is the same. So if anyone wants to say this is two different accounts or it's the same thing happened twice, then just get out of here. We're not interested in your commentary. So when we go back to this and we're like, okay, well, it says, "And again the anger of Jehovah came to be hot against Israel when one incited David." Why do they say when one incited David and then reference the parallel account in 1 Corinthians? Well, that's because if you do read this and you take the text that we have and you do translate it honestly, which, let's be honest, the New World Translation Committee, I don't even know who it is anymore, but I'm using the 1984. I guess I should have looked up what it says now, but I can hardly even read that old Bible. Well, I guess just for fun, we'll just do that real quick. If you guys like unprepared and you have to listen to me just fumble through. We're going for 2 Samuel 24. And, or it says, "The anger of Jehovah again blazed against Israel when one incited David against them." This time they don't even have the the footnote where it says when one incited David. They just have omitted that. So in the 1984 study Bible, old Betsy here, that one at least will say, well, it probably should be translated he. This one, they don't even try and go there. So let's look at what every other Bible translation says and see if the Jehovah's Witnesses in the Watchtower translated this honestly and correctly. New International Version. Again, the anger of the Lord burned against Israel, and he incited David against them. Once New Living Translation. Once again, the anger of the Lord burned against them, and he caused David to harm them. English Standard Version. Again, the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he incited David against them. Berean Study Bible, and he stirred up David against them. King James Version, or King James Bible, and he moved David against them. New King James Version, and he moved David against them. New American Standard Bible, and he incited David against them. So, the message is fairly obvious. I mean, I'm not an expert scholar in Hebrew, but the message is fairly obvious. God was angry, and he used David as a tool for his anger. That's essentially what's happening here. And the witnesses, I mean, at least in this one, they have a footnote. In their new updated version, they've just abandoned the footnote altogether. Now, why do they do that? Well, because as you go through this account, God also gets mad at David and Israel and kills 70,000 people for doing this census. David was not included in one of those people. But he kills 70,000 people for doing something that basically he put into works. He incited David. He made David do this thing and then got angry at him for it and used that as a way to wipe out Israel. Now, whatever apologetics you want to read, that's just the honest telling of what's actually happening here. So we have there the New World Translation being hilarious and laughable in how they read their doctrine into the actual text of the Bible. And we all know why that's fairly problematic. We've talked about it before. So now, let us talk about the contradictory nature here. Or actually, before we do that, maybe we'll do the whole story, and then I'll give you the differences between the two. So I'll just kind of speed run it here. God says, hey, you need to go and do the census. And then he does the census, and then he gets mad at David and Israel for doing the census. So then he gives them three options. He says, okay, you can either have famine for a few years, you can get just shellacked by your neighboring and you'll lose wars and your neighbors will come. I can read exactly. Or it says, or 3 months of your fleeing before your adversaries. So essentially, your adversaries are going to start attacking you, and you're just going to have to run away. That was door number B, or option number 2. And then the third option was you can have a pestilence in the land for 3 days. So God makes him do the census, gets mad at him for doing the census, and here are the options that David gets. So he goes to David and says, he goes to his angel, who goes to the prophet, who then goes to David. It's an elaborate game of telephone, but we know God likes playing telephone. So Jehovah goes to the angel, who is not named. The angel tells Gad, the prophet, or the interpreter of dreams, or something. I can't remember exactly the word they use. And then he tells the King David. So after this elaborate game of telephone, David's like, famine, that would affect me. That'd be terrible. Let's see. I don't really want to lose wars and, have to run away from my enemies. That sounds like it would affect me. I guess we'll choose pestilence, because last time that you cursed Israel for something that I did, or you had a curse because of something I did, you killed my son and not me. So I'm going to choose giving pestilence. So David chooses door number 3, door number C, and God sends his angel out. He is whips out his hand, and people just start like dying of whatever disease or pestilence that has befallen them. And 70,000 people are killed in the process of this. Now, when we read these things, and I know I've probably said this before, but oftentimes we read that number, 70,000, and it's a number. But take a second and like think of, I don't know, 80% of the capacity of Wembley Stadium. Like, I'll just pick one that probably everyone knows about. And so you have everyone in the supporter section, they get to live. Everyone else, they just get guns and RPGs to the head. Everyone dies. I mean, imagine whatever your local sports venue is that holds, 50 to 100,000 people. Think of that entire group of people. Another way to look at it, when you go to a game or you go to a concert or you go to a comedy show and you're just sitting in the traffic, just the traffic leaving that place is enough to make you think, God, this is a lot of people. Man, this is so many people. The traffic, it's not moving. Am I ever going to get out of here? Just to move like a mile with that many people, it takes like an hour to move a mile. Think about that many human lives were lost because God was angry at them, and he used David as a tool for his anger by doing a census, and then got mad and said, why did you do this census? Well, now you have to pick A, B, or C. Which one do you choose? Clearly, he chooses the one that is least likely to affect him. So he chooses pestilence. And 70,000 human lives are lost. Now, again, we're reading this as taking the Bible seriously. That's what we try and do here, as think about things as if, okay, the Christian narrative, the Jehovah's Witness narrative, the fundamentalist narrative is true. What happened? There was a time and place for it. Honestly, do you, the audience on the YouTube watching this, is there a time and place to kill 70,000 people for counting? For counting. 1, 2, 3, death. But I was just death. But you told me to count death. It's so bizarre and silly. I'm getting worked up, so I will give Winston a treat, and then we'll all feel better. Winston, here's a goldfish. Ooh, do you guys think he can catch one? Let's see if he can catch one. Goldfish, Winston. Almost. I mean, he's a smart dog. It just hit him in the nose. We'll give him a second chance. Second chance. Here we go. I like that we're doing the stunts mid-roll. It helps calm me down. He missed again. Well, it's fine. He's still a good boy. Okay. Anyway, so that's the ridiculous story. That's the New World Translation being completely cooked. But where this gets even more bizarre, which is hard to imagine that this story could get even more bizarre, is that it's an absolute... I don't think that there's any wiggling out of this contradiction. So we read the parallel account in 1 Corinthians 21. So remember, in 2 Samuel, it's... we'll just go through the details so we can just compare and contrast. Jehovah incites him. Maybe I'll do like a little thing on the screen. So Jehovah incites him. Put it somewhere there. And then they make account of Israel. And in 2 Samuel, when they do the final count, it says, Joab now gave the number of the registration of the peoples of the king, and Israel amounted to 800,000 valiant men drawing the sword, and the men of Judah were 500,000 men. So there's another detail that will be important here in a little bit. And then when God goes and tells him a door A, B, or C, it says, well, God doesn't. God tells the angel, and the angel tells Gad, and Gad tells David. Accordingly, Gad came in to David and told him and said to him, should there come to you 7 years of famine in your land, or 3 months of your fleeing before your adversaries with them killing you, blah, 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 blah. So there's a couple different details there. Oh, wait, there's one more here. Uh, bu- 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 Yes, and then in 16 it says, "And the angel kept his hand thrust out towards Jerusalem and to bring it to ruin. And Jehovah began to feel regret over the calamity, so he said to the angel that was bringing ruin among the people, 'It is enough. Now let your hand drop.' And Jehovah's angel himself happened to be close by the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. Sorry, Araunah, the Jebusite." So we have the Jehovah inciting David to do it. We have the number as 800,000 valiant men drawing a sword, and then 500,000 in Judah. We have 7 years of famine, and then the angel is in the threshing floor of Aruna, however you pronounce that, right? Now let's jump over to First Chronicles. We have, I don't know, I guess we'll have to just like erase this whole chart. Boom, it's gone now. And post-production. See, that's fun. And now we have Satan is the one that incites David to count the number in Israel. The number of men is 1,100,000, and Judah drawing 400,000, or 470,000 men drawing the sword. And then they did not register Levi and Benjamin. Then when we have door A, B, and C, it says, "Take your pick whether for 3 years there is to be famine." So instead of 7, we have 3 now. And then when we have the threshing floor business, in verse 15, "Moreover, the true God sent an angel to Jerusalem to bring ruin to it. As soon as he began bringing the ruin, Jehovah saw it and began to feel regret over the calamity. So he said to the angel that was bringing the ruin, 'It is enough. Now let your hand drop.' And Jehovah's angel was standing close by the threshing floor of Ornan, the Jebusite." Ornan, the Jebusite. So we have Jehovah versus Satan. We have 800,000 and 500,000 versus 1,000,000 and 1,100,000 and 400,000. We have 7 days versus, or 3 days versus 7 days, and we have Ornan versus Aruna. Sorry, this is going to look terrible in post because my pointing was off, but we'll figure it out. This is obviously a retelling of the same story. Go and read the 2 accounts for yourself. 2 Samuel 24, 1 Chronicles 21. If you want to say that these are 2 different stories, look yourself in the mirror and just ask yourself some hard questions like, what am I doing? Why am I the way that I am? Because it's really silly to say that this isn't. Now, there are answers out there, and this is a great example of something that should make you say, that's strange. That's odd. I need to investigate that further. Because if you do investigate this further, and you do the research, and you look at both sides of the coin, you look at biblical critics versus biblical apologists, and then you ask yourself, which one of these is more reasonable? And also, which of these 2 people is more likely to have skin in the game? Someone that the Bible has to be the Word of God. It absolutely must be. They start with the answer. This is the infallible Word of God. And then whenever there's an issue with it, they have to do the apologetics tap dance. Is that person more reliable than someone that's just saying, well, I don't have any skin in the game. I mean, I just want to know what is real and not real. I want to know what's truth and lies. I want to be able to look at all this information and look at it rationally and reasonably and objectively and say, okay, well, what's really going on here. And the thing that's really going on here is that the Bible has been changed. Mind blower. People that have been translating the Bible and editing what we now have as the Bible for hundreds and thousands of years, they come across things like this and say, ooh, well, this doesn't look very good, that God killed a bunch of people after he was the one that incited them to action. Let's just cross out God here and say it was Satan that did it. Well, Satan originally wasn't actually a bad guy. He was a henchman for God. We'll probably have a whole episode on that. I'm pretty sure I've been saying that we'll do an episode on the origins of Satan for a while now, so maybe at some point I'll actually do it. But anyway, this has been a longer episode. I guess we'll call this Bible Reading with Wally. Whatever, we got First Chronicles out of the way, but I just found this so interesting because it was this perfect storm, if you will, right? Where you have the three hurricanes that meet of the New World Translation being absolutely doctored. You have a clear example of the Bible and a contradiction in it. I mean, the names are different. The numbers are different. Come on now. Like, it's a contradiction, right? There is a problem. There is a danger. And then we also have a ridiculous Bible story, any way you want to look at it. Because if you do say, oh, well, Satan was the one that incited David to do it. Oh, I know I always come back to it, but if it was a test, you're testing David and punishing not David. So I am going to see who the most honest neighbor I have, and I'll configure a test. So I go to the guy across the street, and I ask him, did you not pick up your dog poop when you were walking your dog, right? And that's the test. And I watched him do it, because I already know the answer. And he says, oh no, I always pick it up. I do pick it up. Then I say, oh, well, guess what's going to happen now, buddy? And I go and kill the other neighbors. Huh? Even if you do want to say that Satan was the one that incited him, God still was looking down at this whole situation. Oh, I probably need to wrap it up or else my memory card can only go for 30 minutes. Anyway, you guys get the illustration. You guys get the point. You've seen Winston. We'll show him off one more time just because he's such a good boy. And maybe this will be our final wicked stunt. We don't have very much time left, fella, so let's make this one count. Winston, come here. Sit. Good, sit. Shake. Shake. Good shake. Good boy. Okay. Now sit pretty. Sit pretty. Good boy. Okay, sit. Catch. Good catch. Look at that guy. He's our boy. All right, another member of the JW Thoughts team. Don't forget to like and subscribe because Winston is super cool, and we will see you next time.